The California music scene of the 80s was ruled by the hair metal bands on LA's Sunset Strip. But near the end of the decade, a new gang of groups started making a lot of noise. Punk rock out of the Bay and ska punk out of the OC.
I think for a long time, the LA people kind of looked down on the Orange County people and saying there's this big orange curtain or whatever. I think that it doesn't really matter where you live. You still have a life and you still have something to write about and talk about.
Formed in 1987, No Doubt had something to say. But they wouldn't be heard for a while because their 1992 major label debut wasn't connecting with an audience, while other local bands like Sublime and The Offspring were breaking through commercially.
We grew up in Orange County, the whole punk rock scene, and we definitely played with all those bands and hung out with them. They're all our, friends and stuff like that. But we were never going to be cool enough or tough enough, But for some reason, things have changed, and we got our, 15 minutes. But really, I think it's probably going to be 5. These days, you only get 5 minutes. We're just trying to enjoy every second of it while it's here.
Let's go back a little bit if we can. I'd like you to tell me a little bit about a bubbling scene in California, which to me sounded like it must have been amazing to see a young Fishbone, Sublime, Chili Peppers, Jane's Addiction, I think that was more Hollywood, The Offspring. Was No Doubt part of that scene? Were you part of that? Were you outsiders? How was that working at that time?
We were a band from Orange County. Orange County didn't have a lot of venues to play at. We would trek up to the Roxy and the Whiskey in Hollywood to play shows. But the one thing we were part of was this kind of underground ska mod scene that was happening, and the place that we would play at a lot was in Long Beach called Fenders, and we had this built-in audience that we would be able to play for, and it was amazing to see all those bands you mentioned. Like Fishbone was so influential on us. Their live show was spectacular. I, till this day, don't think I've ever seen a better live band.
And they're still
than seeing them when I was 16 years old and watching that, and they're still incredible. Yeah, and it's just that stuff influenced us so much. I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, it was a really electric, crazy, beautiful time for us.
And then there was a time when we were the fans going to those shows, and then there was a time when we were opening for those bands, and I can remember that being just so surreal to be playing in Long Beach, opening for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It was just, we were children, and then same with Fishbone. Mm-hmm. We played with them, and then it was just, I don't know, it just kept going to these different levels, and you could just tell, we were always we always had this fan base, so we were always sort of famous, and really from the very beginning, for me, it was also gradual, but kind of instant. As soon as we had this band, we had people that came to the shows. It was really amazing in that way, and I can remember going to Tower Records, and they'd be like, girl from No Doubt, go to Kinko's to make the flyers. They'd be like, oh yeah, we know about you guys, and mm-hmm. it was always kind of there, and so that first kind of 9 years of success in a very small pond was incredible. And for me, I don't even know which one was better, that first 9 years or after when you had the commercial success is incredible as well.
Do you guys still play the song Total Hate, 95?
We haven't played that one for a while.
No?
Mm-hmm.
I think I wanted to retire that one, huh?
Probably.
Yeah.
Why?
I think there's certain songs that you just kind of...
It's like certain clothes, you're done. I can't wear that one anymore.
It's, my history with this band, I remember that one always stuck out to me because it was super ska, but then you had this chorus that was super punk, which I really dug. And any time I saw live footage, there's old live footage on YouTube of you guys doing it, it's kicking. But, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, with certain songs in
no, I get it.
general, one song that I always thought that I would be really, how am I going to keep singing Just a Girl? How does that fit into my life now? I'm just a girl. And it's interesting because just recently we pulled it out again to do for some kind of a charity thing, and it has still, the lyrics are so relevant in my life. It's unbelievable how that song for me still works, whereas other songs, maybe like Total Hate, I'm like, okay, come on, Right, that was so long ago. But certain songs live on for me emotionally. I can still connect to them, where other ones I was a child, so right. You know what I'm saying?
So the first deal happened with Interscope, right? And they put the record out, and they weren't happy with how how it's sold. So then they kind of held back on support. Is that pretty much what
I
happened?
feel like they didn't really put the record out.
Oh, they didn't put the record out?
They pretended to put the record out.
We went on tour in 1992. Like, we did a few little short tours, but we went on this 2-month tour in the winter of 1992, and we were in a van and then another van that carried our equipment. So there was like 12 of us in a van, and we would take turns sleeping. Like, there's 2 people to a bench, right? So you would, okay, tonight you've got the floor and I've got the bench. So that way you could actually lay out. And then we'd take turns driving, who was going to be the driver that night. But we would go around the country and we played shows. And it was such a crazy time because we'd go to, like, we played Oxford, Mississippi, and there was more people on stage than in the audience. I remember that, and I remember I jumped down to like make the balance more even, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was such a small place, it worked.
Yeah, but the record store next door didn't
Yes.
have our record in it.
No
We were like,
record
why are
stores.
we playing here and our record's not
That
even
was-
in the
yeah.
store? We were so frustrated, and that's when we decided to put the Beacon Street album out.
Right, and that's what I want to get to. But first I want to ask, when you do get that deal, because, you know, young bands want that. I'm assuming that that's what you wanted. You at least wanted some success, and this was going to help you. So when that came out on Interscope and it didn't kind of go the way you thought it would, like, what was that time like? What do you remember?
That particular issue was confusing. Yeah, we didn't quite understand it. But despite all that, we just kept trying. You know, we kept writing and we kept recording in our little garage. And kind of through the trial of that as a band, it did end up, we found our way, you know, and Tragic Kingdom was kind of the result creatively in the end. And then everything changed.
Everything has to happen, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it was meant to be that wasn't the first record, and that, you know, the events happened to be able to write the second record. You know, Interscope was really, in some ways, they were really supportive because they really let us grow, and they didn't give us a stylist. They didn't try to tell me how to dress. None of that stuff. It was really organic the way they did it. They were like, you just sit in the studio and write songs. And, you know, we're gonna maybe hook you up with a few people we think you should work with as producers. And the one thing we're gonna do for you is we're gonna buy you an 8-track recorder that you can have in your garage, and you can try to write your songs and record them. And we would sit in there and we would write songs and we would record songs, and we were all going to school, we were all working, and that's what we did for fun. And we were never going to make it. And we weren't doing it to try to make it. We were doing it because we were passionate about it. And we really did want to, after that many years of being a live band, we wanted to give the fans that we did have music that was recorded. And so it was more like the goal to be able to be signed to have the money to actually make a record, not so much to make it, because we weren't going to make it, because we were making the music we were making, and it was the grunge phenomenon happening. How are Just a Girl going to get on the radio? It wasn't going to happen. So that was never I don't feel like that was our goal. Our goal was to finally maybe become a recording band and have music that our fans could actually listen to.
You bring up an interesting point about this music coming out in the face of a time when grunge was happening, because at that time, you know, late 80s, early 90s, music, the words were alternative and grunge, and you were completely different than that. And the whole kind of emergence of this band was a very interesting time in music. You had that, and then you kind of survived it, you know, like you still, even though it didn't really happen then, you kept going and eventually did. And then when Tragic Kingdom hit, you had Backstreet Boys, Britney, and NSYNC, and even though you had pop songs, you were still like this ska group with this kind of punk sensibility, so you weren't that. So I guess I'm curious to know, how do you feel that now, like, No Doubt fit into all that? Grunge was happening, and then it was like the super power pop stuff. Like, where does No Doubt fit into all that?
I think what happened was we were kind of a balance between both, because having a girl-fronted band, it gave it that kind of appeal in a way, maybe, I don't know, of the pop side of it, but at the end of the day, we were such a live band that we could, like, get up on stage and be like, what's up, we're gonna rock, you know what I mean? Like, we had so much live experience that when we were able to actually perform on TV and show them what we got, you know what I mean? We had this weird confidence too, like we were just like, we were ready to destroy. I mean, we had been building up, you know, so I don't really know how it happened. It's a miracle. Every day I think, how did this happen to me?
That's what's great to me about this story, you know, because you guys are like the perpetual outsiders, but you're inside. You're always like, yeah, that's what I love about it.
Deep inside No Doubt is the story of young love lost. From early on, they've had to deal with the reality of being in a band with an ex.
We were living our personal life in the public, and it was very intense.
And how heartbreak inspired Gwen to find her voice.
My whole existence was like being in love with my first love and like having my best friend, my boyfriend, to like this powerful position of writing these songs. And it was like this passion to be able to be a songwriter, to do something.
Plus, we take the band on a trip back in time.
I'm scared.
When No Doubt in 60 continues.